We have our brilliant Paul about to come up with I dare say, controversial topic for some, but this is what we do, isn't it? Curiosity brings open minds, brings learning, and there's always something to learn, even if it's perhaps not what you expected. That's what raising consciousness is all about expanding our awareness. So very welcome to you all coming out in this chilly morning. And without wasting any more time, because I know there's a lot to say from Paul, would you make him welcome, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Good morning, Awaken Festival. It's Sunday morning and you're here, so I'm impressed already. I hope you will be today, as we're going to be talking about cannabis-assisted somatic therapy, which I'll explain what that is very shortly. And in fact, today you're going to learn a number of things. So this is what we're going to learn today. We're going to learn the recipe and formula for using cannabis as a psychedelic. We're going to talk a little bit about how this has changed my life. We're going to learn a little bit about what a psychedelic experience is that's safe and legal. And I'm going to tell you why you should listen to me about this too. So here's the cheat sheet, in case you've got to go straight away. But what we're going to learn today is about cannabis psychedelic process, starting from preparation, through set and setting, through an experience, a grounding session, and through integration to change your life. So this is what a cannabis psychedelics process is. But again, why you should listen to me. I've been working in the cannabis and hemp industry since 1996. I'm an advisor to the US government. I've been advising the Thai government. I've been a delegate to the United Nations Conference of Parties. I created the first CBD medicine company in Australia that's listed on the ASX. I'm a chairman of the Hemp Plastic Company. I've developed and founded the first hemp foods and plastic companies in the world. I created the first psilocybin psychedelic trial planned in Australia. I'm a founder of a psilocybin manufacturing business. I'm founder and chief trainer at Cannabis Psychedelics. I'm a cannabis medicine reviewer, and I'm a founder and CEO of the Happy Clinic, which is a medical cannabis specialty clinic. I've written 15 books. So I hope you can understand that I have been involved with this plant for quite some time. I'm not just jumping on this bandwagon, which people see it as. It's been my life's career before it was ever popular. And why? Because cannabis is my boss. It's my friend and my boss. It is the spirit guide that leads me through my journey and allows me to share what I have to do today and all that I've done throughout my life. Now, cannabis, what is it? Well, basically, it's a plant. It's apparently the most important commodity through most of history. Yet in a small part of the world, from 1930 to 2014, which is our recent history, it was the Earth's most persecuted commodity. But that has changed, and again, it is becoming recognized for what it is, a very, very amazing plant. And it's been used for thousands of years throughout all different parts of the world. From India, from the 3,000-year-old Vedas, that's as long back as the Indian records go. The Egyptian mummies were found buried with cannabis in their Egyptian tombs, not just from a textile perspective, but also from a consumption perspective. It was mentioned in the first book of the Chinese Pharmacopoeia. And most importantly for me, the Romans in the Roman times used cannabis as a psychedelic in a very similar process to what I'm going to be talking to you about today. So there is significant and real history here, and there is a lot more, but this is just a little insight. Is it legal? Yes, cannabis was legalized in Australia for medical purposes in February 2016. Hemp foods weren't legal until 2017. That took me 17 years of lobbying before hemp foods were allowed. Psilocybin and MDMA were also recently allowed as a psychedelic tool, and ketamine also. But we are here to talk about cannabis. And cannabis as a plant in terms of the medicinal uses has many different cannabinoids, and this is just some of them here. In case you can't read the small writing, these are different uses of those cannabinoids, and they're different actions from CBD, THCV, CBG, CBC, etc., for many different uses: antispasmodic, neuroprotective, bone stimulant, anti-inflammatory. It has so many different uses that are good for you. And in fact, Dr. Ethan Russo says cannabis is the single most versatile herbal remedy and the most useful plant on earth, and that no other single plant contains as wide a range of medically active herbal constituents. So it really is a fascinating plant. But we're going to talk about why we need cannabis as a psychedelic, which is very different to as a food, as a recreational substance. We're not going to be talking about those today. Now, cannabis as a medicine in itself is known to be useful for pain relief, to reduce anxiety, to improve sleep, to have neuroprotective effects and reduce nausea. A number of these apparent benefits are listed by the TGA, are listed in scientific papers, but this is what we're going to talk about. The reason I got involved with cannabis psychedelics is because of the worldwide mental health problem. Now, 15% of the global population have mental illness. Anxiety affects 284 million people, and depression a very similar amount too. So, and in Australia, 1 in 7, that's quite a few in this room alone, are using antidepressants. So if you are, don't worry, it is normal now to use antidepressants. Suicide being the most common cause of death in Australians is also a bit of a challenge for me to consider. And the reason why I decided that using cannabis as a mental health tool was absolutely critical. And by the age of 45, if any of you are over 45, none of you look over 45, by the way, but if you were over 45, then 86% of you probably meet the formal diagnosis of having a mental health issue. Now, that's a significant number. That's most of us by far. So we're going to talk about what is a psychedelic and how it works. Well, just quick, short bit of science here. It basically works on the CB1 dopamine activation. It creates and affects and regulates serotonergic functions, and it modulates the 5-HT21AR receptors in the brain, in the body and in the brain. So the endocannabinoid system, again, you might have heard about this in other talks, is something that we all have. And it was only discovered relatively recently, which is why most medical practitioners are do not really understand this fully. But every single one of us, every mammal has an endocannabinoid system. And you can see on this image here that it's in our brain, in our organs, and completely throughout our body. It's in our lungs, in various parts. Have different lock and key mechanisms. And the best way I can describe that is that these receptor sites are like a lock, and cannabinoids are like the key, and they are literally fit that lock. So what that means, because we all have it, is that we are literally built for cannabis. We are literally built to have cannabinoids in our system, and they affect our pain, our memory, movement, appetite, metabolism, immunity, and many other things within our body. So it's a really critical system that is absolutely foundational to every human being. And we need it the most, and the only time humans actually produce cannabinoids is when we breastfeed. Well, I say, as in when females breastfeed, then they produce cannabinoids for their baby. That is the only time that humans produce it, because babies have to have cannabinoids to survive and to have good brain development. So it is critical part of what we need. Now, cannabis psychedelics. Why we do cannabis psychedelics, what's different between cannabis and other forms of psychedelic therapy like psilocybin, like MDMA therapy that you may have heard of. Well, one, cannabis is the most gentle. It's a gentle psychedelic where it gives you agency to leave the experience if you want. Now, if you have any idea about using psilocybin or MDMA therapy, when you're on that train, there's no getting off again. But with cannabis, you can literally choose and be gentle. It's also under $1,000 a session, rather than the $20,000 or $30,000 that currently Australia offers legal MDMA or psilocybin therapy for, which sounds kind of ridiculous when you can pick mushrooms from your garden. But it is legal to practice today, cannabis and psilocybin and MDMA. So if you have $30,000, yeah, you could go and try mushrooms if you want something really powerful that you can't leave the experience for. But if you want something powerful that you can leave the experience for, and you want to spend less, then cannabis psychedelic therapy may be for you. But it is a complex plant, so choose a therapist that actually understands how to use that plant, who has some knowledge on that plant, because there's so many different things to understand. Are you going to use a whole plant extract? What is the entourage effect? Is it just about THC and CBD? Or there are terpenes, flavonoids, cannabinoids, and esters, alcohols, and many more ingredients within cannabis that is going to affect you. Terpenes, I want to talk a little bit about terpenes because terpenes are critical. Terpenes are what you can smell. If you've ever smelled anything, you've smelled a terpene. It's like amino acids are the building blocks of protein. Terpenes are the building blocks of things that you smell. Now, I'll give you an example. If you deeply inhale the perfume of a rose, it can actually increase CBD's anti-cancerous power. In fact, in your liver, when you smell CBD, it actually activates receptors in your liver that promote anti-cancerous effects. So these are just one example of one kind of smell. So smelling roses is a really great thing to do. So if you have a loved one, buy them roses because it will help their health. Now, there are other different terpenes. Citronellol also helps stop cancer cells growing. Myrcene helps CBDs penetrates the brain and prolongs its effects. Limonene creates CBD's bioavailability. Beta-caryophyllene similarizes with humulene, boosting its ability to oxidize cancer cells. So there is a lot of positive effects of using terpenes which are smells within the body, and cannabis naturally contains a number of different terpenes. Now, when you're consuming cannabis, there's lots of different ways to do that. There's imbibing methods of flowers, oils, hash resins, edibles, topicals, and you don't have to worry about that because as a professional, we choose what to offer you. That's usually from a vaping methodology. Now, in fact, even if you did smoke it, the results from the medical director of the UCLA Pulmonary Function Laboratory says that marijuana smoking actually had a protective effect on the lungs. Now, I'm not promoting smoking at all, but it just goes to show that smoking and lung disease are not directly related. It's quite a complicated situation. But is it safe? Listen to the Australian Medical Association, and you'll hear that the president says that real cannabis is not safe. Australians need synthetic chemicals. So if you want to believe our Australian medical system, please go and listen to him. And if you want to listen to the US government, then you should probably watch these videos and realize this is the propaganda. And see that guy on the piano, he's the one taking cannabis. Can you tell? He's evil, and there's evil people taking advantage of young women and creates orgies and creates death and will make you jump out of windows. And there's all these crazy situations. And look at that dangerous plant, isn't it? Look at that scary plant. So all of this goes to show what the foundation and the history. Oh, look, hiding it in heels. That's really, you don't need to do that anymore because it's legal. So, but that is what people used to believe, that cannabis was creating all of these problems. And these people will go and take advantage of people because they consume cannabis. Now, I don't think, at least in my experience, that's not what happens when you consume this cannabis. And is there peer pressure to consume it? I think it's peer pressure to do everything for young teenagers. And that's why education and having things legal so that we can talk about these things counts. But I think this kind of video really shows things that do not happen generally within cannabis. They don't, I think alcohol is more dangerous because I don't know if I've never seen anyone on cannabis start to kill people and make you do this. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know where they got these ideas from. Never happened in history, but this affected the history of the planet. So, yeah. Look at that. It looks quite an intense look, that. Anyway, we'll move on from that because, actually, if you want to listen to real science, then Dr. Lester Grinspoon, the professor of psychiatry in Harvard University, said there are no deaths from cannabis anywhere. You just can't find one directly from cannabis. They don't exist. So it is literally one of the safest plants. And in fact, I wrote a paper on explaining how cannabis is safer than water. Cannabis is safer from water. I can kill you with water much easier than I can kill you with cannabis. It is a ridiculous statement, but it is just showing you how safe cannabis is. So anyway, I'm here to talk about the cannabis psychedelic process. So we'll go a bit more deeper on that. I explained that it's gentle, gives you agency, but some people say it comes on as strong as ayahuasca. It has visuals very similar to DMT. So this is not experiences people would usually contain or connect with cannabis. And here's just an example of a testimonial. My psychedelic journey provided me with such deep healing, and I found I was able to shine the light on some of my shadows, to face my fears, to look at deep-seated trauma still in my body, and to become aware of some unconscious patterns that were playing out in my life. I walked away from the experience feeling empowered, strong, brave, lighter, with a deeper sense of trust in myself, others, and life at large. So these are the kind of experiences people gain from this. And this is one of many, many, many positive testimonials that we've had in this. And it all starts with preparation. So if you're preparing for a cannabis psychedelic experience, which you are now, whether you like it or not, you don't have to go any further at any point in this experience, but you are preparing by understanding the foundations of what this experience is like. And that continues with a medical intake form. So if you want to go past this listening to me talking today, then come and book a session. And what you'll do is you'll fill in a medical intake form that's been designed by doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and I'll explain more about that at the end. And that is the way I get to connect with you individually, because for me, it's a very individual process. There are some people that offer these things in groups, and that can be done as well. But I prefer, and I think this is a very deep process, requires the respect of one-on-one connection. Now, again, there are contraindications with cannabis. Yes, it's safer than water, but if you're pregnant, if you're under 21, if you have bipolar, cardiovascular disease, these are just some ideas of some contraindications that probably mean cannabis is not right for you. But it is the mindset that you go in for this experience. Is why are you going to do cannabis psychedelics? What do you want to gain out of this experience? That idea is really important. And also is the setting, the space that you can have this experience in. So if you want to do it in a dark room with unnatural lights, that's up to you. I recommend considering a natural setting. So I offer this in a natural health retreat space in Byron Shire, and some of my students offer it throughout the country in different sets and settings. But whatever happens, be close to nature as you can. Currently, medical trials of psychedelics are usually done in hospitals with beeping machines and a picture of nature behind. Now, if you think that's connected to nature, well, that's okay. That's the medical profession's idea of connecting you with nature by having a picture of nature in the room. And if that's all you can do, it's better than nothing as well. But action time is when actually the medicine starts working. And that starts with ritual. So we start the cannabis experience with a ritual of the elements. So that's the earth, that's the water, that's the air, that's fire. These rituals and the directions are what actually we've been doing for, again, time immemorial. Ritual is absolutely critical to this process, and in making it formal space, opening a space and closing a space is absolutely important. Using breath work, using mindfulness, using all the tools that we have learned throughout history that you see in different practices, bringing them all together to support yourself in this experience. We also use modern technology. I have no problem with using modern technology as well as using the ancients of the elements and of the plants, but using sound and light technology to give vibrations, because there's vibrations everywhere. Everything is a vibration. The vibration that we have together right now on this stage to you is a vibration. If you're feeling good vibes, that's great. If you're feeling bad vibes, it's still a vibration. There is actually vibration of this stage. There's vibration of these tables here. Everything has a vibration, even when they're solid. Some things have a higher vibration, some things are lower. And that has been discovered again throughout different religions and different places around the world. So, for example, in churches, when they sing, they have a particular vibration. When the Tibetan monks sing from their throat in the Himalayas, they've learned different vibrations and how they affect healing. We can now take that technology and place that in things like a sound bed and put it through light technology, so we enhance those vibrations. Using that with cannabis is very, very powerful. There are lots of science explaining how lights and the colors and the different hertz actually affect us. And I believe the power of light and sound will be improved, and we'll learn more about that as we move on. The real work happens with cannabis, though, inside. And to come inside in your body, you need to close off some things. So sometimes we won't use most of the time, for beginners, we won't use light at all. In fact, we'll close off light, we'll close off the stimulation, and the only stimulation being the vibration from the sound, so going through a sound experience. So that is where the real stuff happens. But the medicine itself, and here's a little side note, I now offer people to get access to good medicine through the Happy Herb Clinic, if they're eligible, to find the correct medicine for themselves. Because medicine, or from a plant, is very individualized. I believe that the future will be naturopaths and homeopaths will have access to supporting people with this medicine. Right now it's through GPs, and the Happy Clinic, or getting access to Dr. Uggs, it happens through doctors which will give you access to specific medicine for yourself. And it looks like this, because this is the flower from this plant. It's like roses look like this, cannabis looks like this. It's a beautiful flower. It's a close-up in the top left of that photo as well. Anyway, back to how it feels, because gaining deep insights through old memories, changing your life forever, is why we are working on this medicine. Skipping to after the experience, because I can't explain more about what the experience is, because it's going to be individual for every one of you. And that individual experience is what it's about. It's going in working with you. The plant works with you and what you're doing. And when you have worked on your deep-seated trauma, your memories that you forgot, when you thought you were going to work on this idea of changing your life, but it shows you over here. When you think that you're going to work in your head, but it shows you about your knee. When you think you're going to be working about your other knee, it shows you a color. Whatever it brings for you is actually perfect for you. And after that experience, we need to ground. We need to come back to the earth to solidify these experiences that we are given and gifted from the plant world and bring that into our everyday life. And we do that immediately after grounding by journaling. So after the experience, it has been proven in, again, everything I'm talking about is backed by science in some form, but journaling is the most powerful way to integrate an experience. I will say that again. Journaling is the most powerful way to integrate any experience. So that means writing, pen and paper. It's an old way, I know. Most of us type these days. Some of us don't even type and we just dictate. But journaling with pen and paper actually solidifies an experience. And that is part of integration. Integration is the most important part of the entire experience. And if you want to learn one thing today, remember that integration is the key to actually making change in your life. Because I can give you a one with God experience. I can show you the entire universe, which is all lovely for 5 minutes. But unless you're actually going to go and change your life, and if you're going to go straight back into your regular life, what's the point? That's great. It's like going to have a really fun thing that you never remember again. You've got to have another fun thing. Well, that's not what we want to do. We want to keep integration because we don't want to keep chasing these altered states. No one's interested in altered traits. And that's what we're about, making changes in our lives, in everyday lives, integrating what we learn from these plant-based experiences and making real change today. So I could read you other testimonials. This is from a psychotherapist that wasn't sure about this experience and had tried other psychedelics and found that it doesn't get you high. You don't get stoned. You don't get like daisy. In fact, you get clear experiences with this medicine. You get clear experiences where the intentions are absolutely clearly dealt with, and you have the ability, as I mentioned before, to steer the experience if it's too much for you, which is great for people who have some stuff that they want to touch on and feel that they have the power to deal with it or not. And so everything I've talked about is supported by professors, psychiatrists, doctors, healers, historians, specialists from all over the country, in fact, all over the world here. And we have so many of them. We have Mongolian shamans, we have psychedelic experts, we have Chinese medicine people, we have meditators, we have yogis, we have historians, as I said, as well as the doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists, because I think we need all of these people to support us in what one of these full experiences is going to be like. So cannabis psychedelic therapy has become a thing, and I'm really glad to see that other people are starting to copy and change and learn these things and improve it. So I now not only offer the therapy myself in Byron Bay, but I actually teach people how to hold space with all that I've learned over my life's career. So if you're interested in learning more about holding space for yourself or your community, or having an experience with me, then you can click on this left QR code will give you some more information about the course. You can just go to cannabispsychedelics.com.au to have an experience. And if you need to find a place where you can access medicine, then the QR code on the right will give you access to medicine that is directly for you, individualized medicine, should you be eligible, and you get to work directly with doctors that are also trained in Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, but are still general practitioners who can help and understand you. So I hope that's been a helpful introduction to what cannabis as a psychedelic is, and I'm here to, maybe I have a couple of minutes, 1 minute for any question or answers. Thank you very much for listening this morning. Thanks for coming out to Awaken. Yes. 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 There for a cannabis psychedelic experience. So the question was, if you didn't hear, how do you consume cannabis for it as an individual? And so I'll answer that first. In general, there are different ways to consume cannabis, which is smoking, vaping, edibles, or topicals. Okay, smoking being the most well-known, we'll say. Again, even though I told you how healthy cannabis is. Healthy. In perspective, in smoking, I don't promote smoking in any shape or form, so I don't recommend smoking, and I recognize that it's not the worst thing in the world to do if you don't do it regularly. I also recognize that edibles are really helpful for people who have deep-seated pain, particularly who want overnight usage for sleep as well. So I think that is probably a really great way to consume cannabis, and you can get that from the Happy Herb Clinic, for example, in pastils or different forms or oils, and those are the two main edible forms you can get in Australia legally today. In terms of cannabis psychedelic experience, there is only one way that I recommend, and I offer people this medicine to have this experience, and that is through vaporization. Because vaporization doesn't actually burn the plant, and you're only getting the best cannabinoids and the terpenes that I talked about at a particular temperature. And that also goes straight through your system to your brain very quickly. So it's a very short onset, and it will last for a short period of time. Whereas edibles will take a significantly longer time to work on you, and that varies also from 20 minutes to 1 or 2 hours even before it starts, and then may last for 4 hours. With vaporization, it can work within 2 minutes, and it will finish probably, the peak point will be finished in about 45 minutes, 1 hour or so. So I definitely recommend vaporization for this experience because it's, again, the psychedelic process is a very controlled environment, a very controlled experience, and vaporization is the healthiest and the best way to consume and experience the true effects of cannabis, terpenes, and all of the minor parts of that. So good question. Question behind you.
Hi, I'm just wondering how you can get around workplaces that have drug policies in place.
How do I get around? I don't get it.
Yeah.
So, go on.
I'm thinking more out for my husband. Just say he was to do the psychedelic sessions and then decided that he could then choose which cannabis would suit him. Now, for him then to go to work after potentially having a gummy and he gets drug tested and would it be a positive drug test?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I guess the workplace environment is still catching up with the legislative changes in cannabis. So if someone is like a pilot works in the mines, works for the federal police or something like that, who get tested regularly for drugs, then it is something that I would tell them to be very, very cautious of. And I would generally suggest that they go and talk to their employer before they do it and say, look, this is something that I'm considering. It's a medical process. It's a medicine. It's legal. I'm going to consume it for this purpose, and I'm not going to consume it. I'm not going to be affected at work, and have a chat with them in that regards. Because if you do consume cannabis, it does stay in your system for days after. And that is currently where we're at in the legislative environment, is where it is challenging for some people because you can consume cannabis in one night, wake up the next morning from feeling completely normal, and if you got tested for cannabis that next day, it is possible it would still be in your system, and they would deem you as being affected by cannabis, where you actually, in real life, you have no effect. So that legislation is changing around the country. It's already changed, I think, in Victoria. Is the first place that has made these changes in legislation, and it's changing everywhere else. So it really does depend on your employer. But if you work for yourself or you don't work for some that regularly drug tests for any particular reason, then it's probably not going to affect you. So I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe one more question.
Take it. Oh, hi. Hi. Great talk, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah, so exciting. So, does it make you incompetent? Do you think?
Does it make you incompetent?
Well, when you're using cannabis, do you think it can, or does it help you focus a lot better? Is that a really
I
good
think
question?
if you're incompetent, you're incompetent. And if you're not, you're not. So does it make you incompetent?
Or
no.
Maybe it's a different word. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Does it affect your normal state of consciousness? Yes, it does. How it affects you, there are different, and this is again, it's a good question. I'm not, I'm kind of joking, but I'm not. As in, it is a serious question. Is like, how does it affect your state of being? So when you're experiencing cannabis, depending on the particular medicine, it will affect you in different ways. And that is literally why, that was the main reason I set up the clinic, because I was noticing that doctors were just simply prescribing cannabis and like being bought off by brands. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. I want to choose cannabis for the person. Now, some people want cannabis for pain relief. Okay, some people want it for sleep. Some people want to use it for pain relief in the day where they can actually continue working and be completely clear-minded. Now, some people are depressed, some people are anxious. There are all these different reasons why people may consume cannabis and go and get a prescription. Now, there are different products. There are different types of cannabis for each of those types of people. So, I don't know if that was the right word that you were looking for, but I'm trying to give you some color around it, that if you want a particular effect or you don't want a particular effect, then you need to ask it from a doctor that understands how that relates to a particular product, and not just a particular product, which is different cannabinoids, different terpenes in that plant that they're going to suggest to you, but also in the way that you consume it as well, which is I was talking a little bit about before. Some you want for a short period, some you want for a longer period of time. So it really is about experimenting for you individually. So the doctor can give you that information and recommend specific plants with specific terpene profiles, cannabinoid profiles, and maybe it will contain no THC, for example. You can get cannabinoid profiles that are high in CBG, CBC, CBN, and in edible form, where you don't feel any effects on your mind at all. And there's some that will give you the clarity on the mind too. So you can get all of these individualized products for yourself. And the best is to get a few of these, to trial them out, to understand what works for you. When you know what works for you, then you can have similar products to that. Then you can know exactly what you're looking for. I can't give you specific advice without knowing a lot of things about you personally, and that's not my job anyway. It's a doctor's job. But I'm just telling you, this is how you can access the doctors who can give you that information. Sadly, not all the doctors are trained, because the Australian Medical Association believes doctors only need to be trained for THC and CBD right now, and that's all that counts. I don't believe that's the case, because I've been working this for 30 years and seen how people use it all over the world. So I hope that gives you a bit of...
Yeah, can I come and have a chat with you later?
You can, absolutely. So yeah, if you want a card, if you want a card with these details, then come and see me after. But I think I have to finish up now. Thank you again for listening. Have a wonderful day.